Good morning or afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is especially for leadership teams. We're going to be talking about the Chapter Goals program as it relates to BNI Connect, how you can put in your chapter goals for the upcoming 6 months or for the next year even, and how you can monitor and track those goals throughout the year, again, using BNI Connect. Before we get started on today's content, just a couple of housekeeping things. First of which is that this is a live webinar, so if you have any questions whatsoever as we're going through the material, please do feel free to ask those questions. The best way to do that is to type your question in to the control panel, the questions panel here in the GoToWebinar software. I'll see that pop up on my screen, and I'll be able to answer those questions as we're going through. We're scheduled for about 30 minutes worth of content. I like to be respectful of everybody's time, especially on a Friday afternoon, and get you out of here on time. That being said, if we do have a lot of questions, although we'll wrap up the content portion promptly by the bottom of the hour, I'm always happy to stick around and answer any questions that you might have. So don't be shy, ask as many questions as you would like. This webinar is also being recorded. You'll be able to find the recording of this webinar in a couple of different places. The first of which is going to be on the support site. If you click on this question mark in the upper right-hand corner of BNI Connect, that will take you to the support site. On the support site, you'll see our list of upcoming webinars, and this will change in a couple of days to display our April selection of webinars. And if you scroll down just a little bit to Chapter Training and Documentation, you'll see the section called Recorded Webinars. And in here, you'll see the webinars broken down month by month. And here in March, you can check out our entire series that's been recorded so far. And today's recording will be added to this list right here in just a day or two. You can also check us out directly on our YouTube channel. And you can do that by going to youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. Again, youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. And we have a ton of things up on our YouTube channel as well. We have some special messages from Dr. Meisner about BNI Connect. We have a ton of educational moments, short 3 to 5 minute videos that you can actually use at your chapter as educational moments if you'd like to introduce different aspects of BNI Connect. And of course, we have our webinar series and some other uploads there on our YouTube channel. So please do check that out. But today we are going to be talking about the chapter goals in BNI Connect. Now the goals are great because they allow you to track the progress of your chapter throughout your leadership term. Whether that's a 6-month term or a 12-month term, we can track it by putting the goals into the system, and then the system will automatically take the results from the POMS reports through that time period and populate the results into the goals program, so you can really take heed of how you're progressing throughout the year. In addition, it gives you the ability to really plan things out with your chapter. A lot of times as leadership teams, and by the way, I am also a member in BNI. I've been a member since 2002, so I have held numerous leadership team positions, both president a couple of times and vice president as well. But one of the things that we often do is, we don't plan enough for our BNI meetings, both as a member and as a leadership team. The goals program kind of helps you to look at the year or the 6-month period as a whole and be able to plan things throughout the year to help you to keep your chapter on the right track. So let's take a look at how this works. Now, in order to get to this, we do need to go beyond the home screen here in BNI Connect where all the online slips and everything are. To do that, we're going to go to the operations menu. Now, a lot of people say to me, I can't find anything in BNI Connect. I don't know where it is. I don't know where to go. Here's how I remember where to go in BNI Connect. There's these drop-down menus up here along the top in the red navigation bar here. Network is going to be all of the social media things, so the groups, the connections, the testimonials. All of the social media parts of BNI Connect and networking tools are going to be under Network. The other places where you'll spend most of your time, especially as a leadership team person, is going to be under Operations and Reports. The way I distinguish between these is operations is more of an input and reports is output. You can't ever enter anything into the reports through the reports menu. The reports are only going to display statistics and things like that. So whenever you need to enter something, whether that's entering a POMS report or entering a mentor pair or entering a visitor, you're always going to go to the operations menu. So I'm going to go to operations. I'm going to go to the chapter level here. And here we have our different options under the operations menu. You'll see a bunch of options here on the left-hand side, each with some sub-menus once you click on them. And we're going to go to Manage Goals. Now, by default, if you are a leadership team member, meaning a president, a vice president, or a secretary-treasurer, you should, by default, have access to this Manage Goals program. If you are currently waiting to transition over on April 1st, you may not see this Manage Goals yet, or you may click in here and only see the View Chapter Goals, which will show you the progress report. But you do need to be on the leadership team, usually, in order to enter the chapter goals. But we're going to go ahead, we're going to click on Enter Chapter Goals, and this will bring us into the entry screens. Now I'm doing this for one of my test chapters up in Antarctica, up in my Shiver region and in the Burr chapter. We're always going to be entering goals in periods of 6 months. Now they can be any 6 months that you want to. It could be January through May, or it could be what we typically use in BNI of April through October. But again, you can choose whatever date range you'd like to start with. We're going to start with April 1st because that is this next upcoming 6-month term. The first thing you do need to do is to define a long-term vision for your chapter. And this is kind of the, where do we want our chapter to be in 6 months or a year or even 5 years from now? It's kind of the big picture thinking. So this isn't where you're going to necessarily put exact numbers in, but more of a general direction that you want to go in. So my long-term vision here for the Burr chapter is that we are going to grow the chapter to be the largest chapter in the entire continent of Antarctica. In addition, we wish to be the #1 chapter in closed business and referrals within a 200-mile radius. So again, that is our long-term goal or our long-term vision for the Burr chapter. Now our mission statement, the mission statement is kind of how you're going to get there, or what are your guiding principles going to be as you're getting to this long-term vision. And our mission statement up there in the Burr chapter is very similar to the BNI mission statement, and that is to help our members increase their business through a structured, positive, and professional word-of-mouth program that enables them to develop long-term, meaningful relationships with qualified business professionals. And we want to create positive community goodwill. So once you've established your long-term vision and mission statement, or if you'd like to go back and do that later, that is perfectly fine as well. Click Go, and it will create the spreadsheet for the next 6-month period, starting with whatever month you have in the start month here. So what we see is basically a spreadsheet here. So we have a spreadsheet that have all of the chapter success drivers in them and the ability for us to enter the goals for each one of them. Now the chapter success drivers are attendance percentage, the total number of one-to-ones, the CEUs or chapter education units, visitors, new memberships, number of members in the chapter, number of referrals, and thank you for closed business. You'll notice that we can put one goal per month in, going across the 6-month period. We also have a place to put in what are called mechanisms. And the mechanisms are the things that you're reminding yourself to do in the chapter on a monthly basis in order to support those goals. They could be new ideas. They could be initiatives. They could be something like a visitor's day to support new member growth. It could be playing the BNI game. It could be making sure that your vice president and membership committee are meeting on a regular basis and sending out the control letters. All of these things are mechanisms, and it's a good idea to put them in here to remind you to do them and schedule them ahead of time. For example, a lot of chapters will do a visitor day right in April and or May. And that's usually because we have the member extravaganza here in the United States. People might also, over the summer months, know that they're going to do something interactive and refreshing, like maybe play a BNI game to keep the chapter in focus. So those are things that you can plan out ahead of time in order to remind yourself to do them. Before you start entering your actual goals in, you do need to make a decision on how you want to keep track of the goals. And it is an all or nothing thing when it comes to this. And that is right here. Up at the top, you're going to choose how do you want to enter your goals. Would you like to enter them as a whole chapter number or as a per member number? And this will also affect the view goals function later. Generally speaking, this is kind of, do you want to work with a really a big number or a small number? I can say that just about everybody that uses this function puts in goals in a for the whole chapter basis. The thing to keep in mind as well is that if you do put these in a per member basis, when it comes to the results, it is going to calculate your percentage of achievement based on your goal number of members and not your actual number of members. So there is definitely a distinction there. I'm going to leave this as for whole chapter. I find those to be better and easier numbers to work with. So the first thing in here is our attendance percentage, and that's a pretty straightforward one. So I'd like to go ahead and just get this one in there. And the goals really, I mean, I know that in our chapter in Antarctica, it's been a really cold winter. We had some pretty terrible attendance for a couple of months. We were hovering around the 85, 88% for attendance. So I'm going to actually start there with a pretty low percentage. I'm going to say we're currently at 88%. Maybe by the end of the month, we're going to try to push people and get up to 90%. And then maybe by the end of our 6-month term, we'd like to get up to, let's say 96 or 95%. The way I like to do my goals is I kind of try to think of where we are now and then where we want to get to, and that helps me to fill in the middle in order to come up with a good structure and steady pace throughout. So maybe we're going to go and we're going to get to 91% and then maybe 92% and then maybe 94%, 95, and 96%. Now we can do some mechanisms in order to support those goals. And again, mechanisms are things that, again, may help us to increase the attendance percentage. So one thing that I like to do, and right off the bat to increase attendance percentages to, with our new leadership team, make sure that our vice president is following all of the structure and sending out the control letters. So I'm going to put that in, absence control letters. And that's something we probably want to focus on for at least 2 months because people will start accruing the absences, probably only start accruing their second and I hope not, but third absences maybe in the 2nd month. So this is something we want to concentrate on for a couple of months. And maybe we want to make sure that we kick this off with some strong educational moments on the importance of being there and being present at the meeting. So maybe we want to do educational moment on being present. And as we go through, we can make sure that we do things to support these goals. Now, if you're looking for ideas on what types of mechanisms are out there, or maybe just to freshen your memory, these don't have to necessarily be standard things from the book, but if you are looking for more standardized things, you can click on this chapter goal guide up at the top. And this chapter goal guide will give you some ideas on things that support the various mechanisms for the success drivers, the chapter success drivers. So here's one, maybe a follow-up phone call by the membership committee whenever somebody's absent, just to even ask them, hey, we missed you this morning, are you okay? So I'm just going to copy this one, and I'm going to make sure that we start up on that next month. All right, scrolling down, you don't have to do these in order, by the way. And one thing you also want to get in the habit of is this is a pretty long form, and if you're doing this as a leadership team, maybe at a leadership team meeting where you're sitting down with your supporting officers and you're talking about these things, you may want to, just like with a Word document or an Excel file, save this every once in a while. You can do that by clicking the Save button at the bottom. It will keep you on this page, but at least the data will be submitted at that point. Keep in mind that BNI Connect does have a 30-minute timeout. So if your computer stays idle, completely idle, meaning there's no mouse movement on the screen or anything like that, or you don't click in any boxes, it will time you out and for security reasons log you out of the system. And if you haven't saved it, then you will lose whatever you had put in there so far. All right, so we had attendance percentage. Let's look at some of these other things, though. I think that it's not always best to go directly in order. And probably the next thing that we really want to look at from a goals perspective is what do we want to see our chapter do as far as size? And really the size of the chapter will determine a lot of these other things, such as how many new memberships do we need in order to achieve that number of members in chapter? And how many visitors do we need in order to support that number of new memberships? So I'm going to go ahead and start with the number of members in the chapter. And as before, we have about 25 members in the chapter right now. So I'm going to conservatively say that we'll be at 26 by the end of April. And I think I'd like to get our chapter up to maybe 30, 34, 33 members, let's say. So 33 members by the end of this term. So it looks like we're going to add about 7 members or so over that period. So maybe we'll increase it by a couple per month. So maybe 28, 30, 32. And maybe we'll back that off again. Let's say 27, 28, 30, 32, and 33. And of course what we need is some mechanisms to support that. Now, I know in let's say, think about August or so, we want to do a stack day towards the end there, a stack day in the chapter. And I know we're going to be doing a visitor's day in May, so I'm going to make sure I do a visitor day here in order to bring some more visitors into the chapter and hopefully some new memberships as well. And of course, we can come up with other ideas as well. Maybe in the summer, towards the end, we're going to be doing the BNI game to keep everybody engaged during those summer months of July. And the BNI game, actually, I'm going to put this in this line and put it in this line as well, because the BNI game usually lasts 2 months. So those are all things you can do, and of course there's plenty of other ideas that you can put in here. And I'm going to go ahead and save that again. And now we can start looking at, well, if I want to get to this goal, how many new memberships do we need in order to reach that goal per month? One thing to keep in mind is that you'll always have attrition in the chapter. Most chapters on average, and a lot of times this is irregardless of the size of the chapter, is an attrition rate of about 12 members per year or about 1 member per month. So one thing that we want to do is want to make sure that we're always bringing in visitors and we're always hopefully bringing in at least one new member a month. So I'm just going to go ahead and just to start us off, put one member per month across here. Now, in order to get an additional member in, though, in this month, I'm going to have to increase this one to 2 in order to gain one member next month. And we're going to be going up one member that month, so I'm going to go with 2 there. I'm going to go with 2 here because we're going up 1. We're going up by 2 here, so I'm going to say that we need 3 new members that month. And we're going up by 2 here, so 3, and then 2. So it's good to stack your goals a little bit when it comes to that. And of course, you have things that can help with that. One may be that we want to make sure that we're doing visitor orientation, and that hopefully will increase the number of new members. Now, the visitor day is going to support this goal as well. So I can just take that and bring that in there as well as the BNI game. That is going to support this goal as well. So there's lots of things where you don't necessarily have to come up with something unique for every single box. There are goals that support multiple things. Heather has a question here. So Heather, I will address that towards the end if that's okay. All right. So that's the new memberships goal. Now we can look at visitors. So one thing you can do with visitors is that you do need to keep in mind what your conversion ratio is with visitors. And generally speaking, most chapters are going to have somewhere between a 10 and 25% conversion ratio. So let's just say it's 25%. You're going to need at least 4 visitors for each new member. So in that case, I want to make sure that we're bringing in at least 8 visitors for this month. I'm going to even bump that up a little bit and say that we're going to need 10 visitors, 10 visitors, 10 visitors. Let's say 15 visitors, 15, and 10 visitors that month. Keep in mind also that as you grow, as your chapter gets bigger, it should be a little bit easier to bring visitors in on a regular basis. So you may want to bump that up a little bit there too. And of course, what are things that can support bringing visitors? Maybe you can have a bring your sub day. And of course, the visitor day is going to assist with that, and the BNI game is going to assist with that. So we're getting pretty far, even with just coming up with a couple of ideas under other categories. And of course, just remember that you see the chapter goal guide here if you'd like to come up with any additional ideas. Now, for some of these other ones, the total number of one-to-ones, for example, the CEUs, as well as the number of referrals, a lot of times the chapters do base that on a number of members in the chapter goal. So, for example, we want to make sure that our members in our region, our goal for all of our members is that we want to have what we call the power of 1. So we want to always be bringing in 1 referral per week, 1 one-to-one per week, 1 CEU per week, and 1 visitor per month. So we can do that and very easily come up with our number of referrals, CEUs, and one-to-ones, because we want, that's basically 4 per member per month. So I just take 4 and multiply that by the size of the chapter. So that would be 104, and that would be 108, and that would be 116, I think. Oh, no, that would be 112, 120, 128, and 132. So that is a very easy way to make those goals, and then we can do the exact same things when it comes to the CEUs, because that's our goal across the board. And the same thing for total number of one-to-ones. And of course, we have all the mechanisms that we can fill out as well. I'm going to save this again, just because. Our final thing is thank you for closed business, and we know we want to be $1 million chapter. So if we want to be $1 million chapter, we need to be turning in about $100,000 a month. That'll actually make us a $1.2 million chapter. So I'm going to put in a goal of $100,000 per month. And of course, we can do some mechanisms to support that and remind us of what to do. Now, after you've got all of your goals filled out, you can go back to the operations menu, and throughout the year, you can go back and review your chapter goals. So under Manage Goals, you can click on View Chapter Goals. Now, up in Antarctica, our vice president is a polar bear. It doesn't really have very good opposable thumbs, doesn't enter POMS reports very well, so they tend to get behind on them. But we do have some results here, and we can see that it has started to fill out the results for the past 6 months. Now, let me show you a real region, though, because it always helps to see live data. So there's a couple of regions, especially in Florida, where I know that all of their chapters use this goal program extensively. So let's see, for this chapter, I'm just going to go ahead and view their goals. So we can see that this chapter wants over $7 million in rolling 12 months, and every member is going to be 2 cubed with more than 70,000. We can see what their goals were. So, for example, their attendance goals were 100%, and they came pretty close a lot of times, 95, 89, 93, 96, 96, and 93. They had their total number of one-to-ones, and you can see that they came pretty close to hitting their targets a lot of the time. And of course, you can see because they're doing the cubed thing as well, their total number of one-to-ones is actually the same as their CEUs, which I'm going to assume is going to be the same as their number of referrals down here as well. Yes. We can see that their number of members in the chapter, and we can see their increases, and we can see the reflection also in the number of visitors. And again, their thank you for closed business. And we can see they were hitting their mark on more than one occasion. So excellent job to this chapter down in Florida. All right, so we are getting right close to the bottom of the hour. So what I'd like to do is to open this up for questions. Now, we do have a very long question from Heather. So let me see if I can explain this one. And what Heather says is, can you explain why the entering the goals per member is set with the predicted number of members versus the actual number of members? And she says that this is very frustrating that it's done that way. The reason it's done that way is because this is based on this Florida region, the Florida Tampa regions. The program was developed by a man named Tom Fleming, who has been using it for many, many, many years, and that is the design that they had. It has been exceptionally successful for their region. They have the highest, thank you for closed business, the highest chapter averages, and it was one of those, kind of, if it ain't broke and it seems to be working really, really well, that's the way that we put it in there. So I understand it's frustrating. The only other way to do it might have been to, give them, maybe do a toggle option where it shows you both on projected and on actual. The final thing that I'll say on that is that the goals are editable. So if you find that, especially in the beginning of your term, you set these really, really high expectations, and then all of a sudden 2 months in, 3 months in, you're like, oh no, we're not even coming close to hitting those goals. Go back and edit them. Go back and fix them. Go back and make them more realistic. It happens to all of us that, we want to shoot really, really high, and sometimes we can achieve those, and, sometimes we need to go back and make adjustments. We're not carving anything in stone here in BNI Connect when it comes to the goals program, so you are able to go back and edit them later. So does that make sense? Does that help, Heather? All right. What other questions do you guys have? Questions. Wow, everybody is stunned speechless today, I guess. All right. Well, if there are no additional questions, just a couple of reminders that this is being recorded. It will be made available on our YouTube channel and on the support site. You can also, I would absolutely love it if you give us a like on Facebook. If you go to facebook.com/BNI Connect Global. I would love it if you gave us a like up there, and we do webinar announcements and reminders and tips and tricks and all sorts of things, some special announcements from Dr. Meisner. All this up on the Facebook channel as well. And if you found today's session helpful, if you've liked this format, a good referral for me is to please let other people know about these webinars. We do have one final webinar for this month, and that's going to be on Monday, March 30th at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. And we're going to be talking about the leadership team tools and reports. So we talked about the goals today, but we're going to go in and show all of the other things, especially for incoming leadership teams, how to do PALMS reports, how to assign speakers, how to assign mentor pairs, how to email your chapter, how to enter visitors, all those things that you would do on a normal basis as a leadership team person. We're just going to go through that functionality. So I look forward to seeing you guys then, and please, a good referral for me is to tell your other leadership team people, your other chapters, about these webinars. And again, in April, we will start this whole series over again, and I'll be posting those dates very shortly. All right, so thank you guys so much. I hope you have an absolutely fabulous weekend, and I look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Happy connecting.